Activity, the scariest show to take to the West End stage so far? Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Eliza. I'm an actor, a theatre reviewer, and a massive horror fan, and it takes a hell of a lot to scare me. Before we dive into this, and it will be a proper deep dive analysis of why it's so scary, you really should know I didn't like the Paranormal Activity film. I thought it was boring. I know. People are going to disagree with me for that. I'm sorry. But I feel like that's a really relevant piece of information for you to know before we get into the deep dive of why I think Paranormal Activity on stage is so scary. Paranormal Activity on stage is a brand new story inspired by the films but not based on the films. It follows James and Lou, who have just moved from Chicago all the way to London, which is the perfect setting for a West End show. We're already in London. What makes Paranormal Activity on stage so scary? Firstly, the whole play takes place in the couple's home. We see every single room in the couple's home except for one, and it becomes clear why later on in the play. Now, given that as far as the couple are concerned, the home is where the danger is, that in itself is unsettling. We see a lot of little details in the home, but we can never escape it. We are trapped there along with James and Lou. So many elements of the show do such a crazy good job of creating tension. The lighting was one of the first things that struck me as being amazing with the tension. There are subtle things that happen throughout with the lighting that it took me a little while to make the connections and think that was related to something else. Now, I don't want to put any spoilers in this video, so this video will be spoiler free, but it does mean that I'm not going to be explicitly stating the parts of the show that I'm talking about so as to not spoil it. But there are things with the lighting that it took me a while to connect the dots, but when I did, it was like, oh, right, okay, that's like a whole nother level. The lighting is frequently changing, frequently blacking out, and it often does things that you don't understand as an audience member. The sound design was also fantastic, as you'd expect with any horror show. It had some really nerve-wracking parts, but it wasn't overdone. And I think it's very easy for horror shows or horror films, etc., to go overboard on the sound, because a loud sound is a good way to startle people. But this show didn't rely on the sound or the lighting. They just used that to amplify the story, which was really well written. The main thing that made the show so scary, in my opinion, is the performances from our two lead characters, Lou and James. There is quite a bit of humour in Act 1, but it's done in a way that really makes you warm towards our two main characters. And as a result, we get really invested in them, really invested in their well-being. And so when things start to go wrong, it hits us harder than it would have if it was two characters that we felt like we didn't know. We really feel like we get to know them really quickly. And for such a scary show, I think the comedy is really well done. I'm not joking when I say there is so much tension in the air at this show. The gasps in the audience that just ripple through, the tension is audible for a lot of it. There are moments where I felt like I wasn't breathing because I was just waiting and waiting for the next thing to happen. But then there was times when things didn't happen, and that messes with your brain. Speaking of messing with your brain, there are multiple things that happen throughout this story that leave you feeling like you can't trust your eyes, like you can't trust your ears, like you can't trust your brain. And regardless of the fact that this is a fictional story that's causing you to feel that, just the general sensation of feeling like you can't trust your senses is really unsettling. Especially when you've got to leave the theatre, it's pitch black outside and you've got to travel an hour and a half home on your own. Some of the special effects in this show, there are two that stand out particularly, are unreal, next level, things that I haven't seen in theatre before, and I still can't work out how they did it. I think it's really clever. I think they nailed the special effects. They didn't overdo it, but the ones that they did do were really striking. And then because you're so unable to trust your eyes, to trust your brain with what you're watching, by the time you get to the end of the show, you don't really know what's happened. You know what the story showed you has happened, but suddenly you feel like you can't trust the story. You can't trust that what you've seen is actually what's happened. And as a result, you end up having, well, I ended up having multiple interpretations. Is this what happened? Is that what happened? Was what happened on stage actually what happened? Because I don't believe it. I'm now starting to question what's real. I'm questioning which characters are real, which realities are real, to the point now where I came out of the show with 2 or 3 different theories about how the show could have ended, and they would not leave my brain. I was thinking about this non-stop for about 2 days afterwards. I couldn't let it go. It hooked its claws into me. So then, if Paranormal Activity on stage is really that scary, how does it compare to other scary stories on stage? Well, I can only talk about shows that I've seen, which are The Woman in Black, 222 A Ghost Story, Ghost Stories, and an adaptation of Dracula. Of course, there are various adaptations of Dracula and Frankenstein, Dorian Gray, etc. But those are what I've seen. I will put it out there right away. Only one of those shows compares. Only one of those shows comes close to Paranormal Activity, and that is Ghost Stories. The Woman in Black and 222, fantastic shows, but they just don't come close in how scary they were compared to Paranormal Activity. There are really effective jump scares in Paranormal Activity, just like there are in Ghost Stories. And again, Ghost Stories has some interesting special effects, although I'd certainly say I think Paranormal Activity has the edge on the special effects there. If you have watched 222 or The Woman in Black or Dracula, etc., and you are looking for something that actually will scare you, this is your play to see. If you saw Ghost Stories and you loved it and you want to see something else on that level of that high standard, go and see this. If you don't believe anything in theatre can be genuinely scary, go and see this. If you want to see a really well-written, well-directed, well-acted show on stage that is terrifying because it is so well done and not because it relies on easy things like easy jump scares from sounds, etc., you should go and see this. If you have seen Paranormal Activity, comment below. What did you think of it? Did you think it was the scariest show you've seen on stage, or is there something else that scared you more? Did it scare you? Would you see it again? Would you recommend it? And if you haven't seen it, do you want to? Paranormal Activity on stage is at the Ambassadors Theatre in London's West End until the 25th of April. It was originally due to close in March. It's recently had an extension until the end of April, so it's quite possible it will have another extension if the theatre doesn't already have something else booked. It seems to be doing really well. It was my #1 play of 2025. So if you'd like to check out my recommendation, I say watch it. And once you have, tell me, can you hold your nerve? If you liked this video, please hit subscribe. I'll be posting theatre reviews, theatre recommendations, play spotlights based on the plays that I've read and watched on the National Theatre at home, videos about acting, and other videos to do with all things theatre and London's West End, and also London's off West End. So make sure you hit subscribe.